those technology things.
And we are live now. Yeah, fantastic. Perfect. I can see each of you. I can still hear each of you. Beautiful. I can see attendees coming in. And we are ready to begin this thing. Welcome, everyone, to another 80-10-10 live interview session with Dr. Douglas Graham and our special guest tonight, Jade Tornquist, the Hungry Vegan. It's going to be another fantastic interview session. If you have not been to one of these, it's a little different protocol than our normal Q&A or our coaching sessions, but this is open to the family, and we've actually opened it up to a larger public as well. So glad to have you here, or glad to have you watching the replay if this is what you're doing. Essentially, in this format, Dr. Graham will be conversing with Jade, and at the end of their conversation interview, we will be able to address questions to them. And feel free throughout the interview session to drop your questions into the chat box on the right or continue to chat with the fellow observers. And at the end, I'll come on and moderate through those questions and address them in a timely or orderly fashion as they came in to Jade and Dr. Graham. So without much further ado, Dr. Graham, would you like to introduce your guest? And I'll turn the screen over to the two of you.
Well, you know, I've done a funny thing lately, and because I've had so many introductions in my life, and some of them have made me like practically tear up and wish that I was that person being introduced, and then I realized I was, and some of them made me want to spend time with that person, which is always good. Like, well, I want to be more. I want to be more like the person that I want to develop more of that side of myself, as it were, of the parts that the introducer talked about. But I've had so many introductions that really left me flat or didn't feel they fully covered the job. And so, although I haven't told very many of the people that come to be interviewed, I'm actually going to ask Jade to do a lot of her own introduction, because who you were really is only a piece of who you are, and I want to know, and I want to let the audience know who you are now, not just who you were, and we'll bring up your history, and the reason you're on the show with me is because you are a leader in the raw movement, and because you are teaching people how to improve their lives and become healthier, happier, more productive in what we would call clear, congruent, scientifically sound practices and principles. It's not the gimmick of the week club at all for you, Jade, and really never has been. So, but you do have a lot of history, and so we'll just recognize that by being on the show, you've already stepped into that respected and credible leadership role that are the people who come to be with me and spend some time here. And I'm just honored that you want to spend some time with me in the middle of the night, all the way around the world. You're actually only 6 time zones ahead of me, but 6 time zones ahead of me. It's 8 o'clock at night here. So, folks, I mean, be very appreciative that Jade is here with us at 2 in the morning to start a show, and with a smile. And bless you. Thank you so much for being here, Jade.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honor. I'm just so grateful to be here, and I'm so grateful to you. Your book has changed my life, and it's changing the life of so many people's lives, people that I share my day with. When I say my day, my social media day with, and it's just an absolute honour. I can't tell you what an honour it is for me to be on this show. It's great.
Well, again, it's at the risk of being mutual admiration society, but we'll get on with the show, and we'll bring out the rest as we go. And as people can probably tell, Jade has an accent, not me, and and it's Australian.
Yeah.
Where in Australia did you grow up, Jade? Where do you head from?
South Australia. Most people haven't heard of it. It's Adelaide.
Adelaide.
Adelaide, yeah. It's not Sydney or Melbourne. Adelaide, yeah.
Or Perth.
Not Perth.
Oh, no.
Right down under, yeah.
And that's about, for most people, Sydney and Perth, that's about as far as they can go as far as naming cities. But
yeah, and Melbourne, yeah, pretty much.
Melbourne, yeah. And Botany Bay.
And Botany Bay, yeah.
But Adelaide, it's a little bit more like a four-season kind of place, isn't it?
Yes.
You have winter, and you have a good cold winter and a good hot summer, and is that still home? Is Adelaide still home?
Oh, Adelaide will always be my home, whether I'm there or not. It's still my home. It's where I've lived my whole life, where I was born. So no matter what, it's my home. Yeah.
Fantastic. And picking out the parts that were probably that you consider to be interesting. What was it about your childhood that led to you becoming who you are now? Bring us back to 6-year-old Jade and 10-year-old Jade. And, what was life like growing up?
Well, I was brought up.
City, or was it rural?
No, well, I mean, I grew up in, it's classed as a city, but I grew up in the hills. I grew up in a town called Belair, so it's very hilly, lots of gum trees, you know, you can see koalas, and I mean, you don't see kangaroos hopping around, but if you went to the local park and went around, you would see kangaroos and things like that. Very cold in winter. Very warm, hot in summer, bushfire territory come summer. So the two extremes. I had a great childhood. I mean, we had kids all around my neighbourhood. We rode bikes. I used to run little shops. I was a bit of an entrepreneur as a kid. So I was always running, you know, little shops or schools and trying to make, you know, little money from the other kids.
Brothers and sisters?
I had one sister, I still have. I had a younger sister. Yeah, so grew up, we're about 2.5 years apart. So grew up with her and grew up with lots of kids in the street, similar ages. It was a fabulous place to grow up. We grew up playing in creeks and, you know, riding down big hills, no handles, and how we survived, I don't know. So we were, crazy sort of daredevil sort of kids. I had as a child, a great childhood, definitely.
What called your name? Were you a musician? Were you into animals? Were you doing sports?
I was into sports as a kid. I played netball, basketball, athletics. I was a sprinter, did high jump, long jump. I was sports captain at school. So I was always heavily involved in sports up until I was a teenager. Yeah, I was always involved in sports and always involved in anything active. I was a pretty active kid.
And if you were going to describe food in the family, typical meals, average food?
Typical, you know, I grew up as a normal, when I say normal, how, you know, most people did meat and 3 veg, you know, nothing like I'm eating now, that's for sure. I ate a standard, you know, meat and 3 veg and 2 pieces of fruit a day, and that was, you know, my life.
Well, I'm sure people ask you, because they ask me all the time if I've always eaten the way that I eat now.
Yeah.
You know, and they have a hard time conceiving of the fact that I was raised on, you know, Oreos and ice cream and Mars bars and candy and,
Oh yeah.
and lots of cakes and cookies and sure we had meat and veg, but we had more than our fair share of sweets and honestly, I don't know how I survived childhood. When I look back on it, I'm shocked that I survived childhood, and I'm watching kids do it still today, and they're suffering, but I'm watching them survive. They have a chance to grow out of it. So, do you have a health history that, I mean, we're going to get to what really drove you to become who you are now, but was it a health thing? Was it a environmental thing? What's your background? Because you were a healthy kid.
Yeah, I was. I mean,
until when?
I mean, when I say I was a healthy kid, I ate sweets and treats and lollies and all those things too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I loved lollies, especially what kid doesn't? You know, you give a kid lolly. We call them lollies. I think you call them candy. Yeah, what kid doesn't? But where did things start to change? My athletic coach, when I was 13, suddenly died. That, I think, was a bit of a turning point in my life. He was a huge male role model for me in my life. He was a big part of my life. He'd always cheer me on. He was, you know, at every racing event, just cheering me on. And I don't know, I often think, where did things go wrong? But I spiraled a little bit out of control. I went to a private school. There were a lot of drugs in my school. And I started to experiment with, you know, marijuana. And as I got a little bit older, I started to experiment with heavier drugs. And yeah, I became a bit of a wayward teenager, so to speak. I guess that's the best way to put it.
No, well, I mean, we appreciate your honesty, and I mean, that was then, and this is now, and you know, it's not going to be held against you in any way. It's always to your benefit, I think. But okay, so then, where did that lead you? So you're a teenager, you're doing that kind of wild and woolly stuff, and did you make it to 20 and you're still wild and crazy Jade, or what happened?
Well, wild and crazy. I think I'm a healthy wild and crazy person now, but no, wild and crazy. Yeah. Well, I had my son at 18, so that slowed me down a fair bit, and followed by I had my daughter by age 20. So before I was 21, I had two kids, so that slowed me down a fair bit. It wasn't until after that I started to get back into some of my wicked ways, so to speak, and predominantly alcohol. Alcohol was always my drug of choice. You know, alcohol's so socially acceptable, and you know, you don't realise it creeps up on you so quickly. Like one minute, you know, you think you're only having 1 or 2 drinks, but someone like me who's susceptible to binge drinking, one's never enough, and one turns into 2 or 3 days of drinking, and it's heavy partying and heavy drinking, and you know, bit by bit, your life starts to really spiral out of control, and it's heavy stuff, you know. Yeah, and it just got worse and worse. And
okay,
you know,
well, we're just having a slight technical glitch with Jade's story at the moment. So
okay.
You can pause for a moment because you're pretty much frozen.
Oh,
now you're on.
Oh, right. Well, I'm fixing my hair.
But right at a very heavy moment there. I mean,
yeah,
you're a mother of 2, which I find incredible. I mean, the responsibility of a mom to take, because especially when the kids are little, the job's like it all belongs to mom. I mean, there's nobody else can do it. It's all mom's job.
Yeah.
And yet you were also living a second life.
Yeah, pretty much. I was living a second life. That's a really great way of putting it. Yeah, there were two lives, two faces, so to speak. But it's not a good environment. I don't think anywhere where alcohol's involved is a good environment for children. I mean, it's not a good environment for adults, but it's certainly not. It's not a good environment for children. That's for sure. You know, when booze is involved, it's horrible, and you're not as attentive as you should be. You're not putting in the time and energy that you should be. You know, how I sometimes I think when I look back and I look at the person that I was, and I think, wow, I don't even know how I got through it, and I don't know how my kids got through it. I just think, wow, you know, through the grace of God, they're here and they're fine, and they, you know, they're good kids. But I sort of look back and think, wow, I was out of control. I really got to a point where I was really out of control. And
so what's that? You're like 23, 24, 25. How old were you? And when did you realize something had to give?
I was 29 when that was the final time I said enough's enough. Life had got pretty bad, and I knew. My mum had my kids for a couple of days. I'd been, you know, partying over the weekend, and I'd looked at my skin in the mirror, which I had quite a few times, you know, and your skin's very yellow and pasty, and you had no sleep. And I can remember looking at myself, and I, you know, look in the mirror and say, what are you doing to yourself? And I would have full conversations with myself, and I would be off my face, and I'm talking to myself in the mirror and saying, look what you've done to yourself. What are you doing? You know, and I can remember I looked and it was so bad, and I used to get very sick because I had peptic ulcers because I drank so heavy, and I used to bring up bile every morning. Without a shadow of doubt, I'd bring up like just yellow bile, and it was disgusting. And I'd finished looking at myself, and then I was sick, and something that day just said, I'm not doing this anymore. And I don't know how I had the strength to get through. It wasn't easy. You know, I talk about it now and it sounds pretty blasé, but at the time it was very hard. But I made that decision. I knew I couldn't do it anymore. My life was crap. It was crap. And I had to make changes. I had to.
Well, good for you. And so what did you do? How did you claw your way out of that hole?
Well, for about 4 days after, I was very sick. I was in a very bad way. I used to take amphetamines as well to keep me going. So I was coming down off amphetamines, coming off booze. I was very sick. I was shaking. You jump out of your skin. It's, you know, it's like tremors. And, you know, when people talk about detox, sometimes I'm thinking, yeah, you go through this, you'll know heavy detox.
People talk about detoxing from potatoes. It's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, this is like heavy. And I was just in hot and cold sweats for days, jumping out of my skin. I was in a bad way. And then when I started to come down, part of me wanted to get back into it, you know, because that's that side that wants to lure you back in. And I openly admit it now. I never used to talk about it years ago, because I think the more I've grown in my life, the easier it is to put it out there and let people know. And I'm always more than happy to put my sobriety story out there. It's something I preach heavily, because I want people to know that it is possible to change your life. And I did attend AA, and at first when I was going to AA, I was going up to 10 times a week. Now that's a lot of AA meetings.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes I was going 2 times a day, sometimes even 3, trying to find a third AA meeting. So it's pretty full on, and you hear the same stories over and over because they go round and round, but you hear some full on stories, like full on, like you think, wow, and you start to take them in, and I would look at women and I'd say, you know what, I'm nearly there. I'm nearly where she is. And I started taking it in, and, you know, I'd listen attentively. I shared stuff in that meeting that I've probably never shared ever again with other human beings, you know, because you carry a lot of shame, you carry a lot of guilt, and you need to let that guilt out. You need to let that shame out. You need to talk about it, you know, and I'd tell my story, and bit by bit I got more and more out, and I haven't been to an AA meeting probably now for 9 years, but at the time they were brilliant for me. They gave me what I needed. They truly did. And I also focused on, I was really fortunate actually. I got involved with a club, and they needed someone to organise their events and everything else, and I just dived right into it. I'm an organiser. I love organising people and those kind of things, and I was just so lucky that this came about because I just dedicated all my time to that. I think it's so important that you're not idle. If you have idle time when you're trying to beat addictions.
Well, yeah, I mean, they say idle time is like the devil's handiwork, huh?
Absolutely, and it's very easy to be led back into the devil's playground, that's for sure. So, yeah, that was a blessing in disguise, that's for sure.
So now you're on a path, but you're still eating pretty much the same as everybody eats. The light bulb hasn't really gone on. You've now come back to what we're calling normal. And then how did you go all the way off the other end of the scale to, we'll call it super normal?
Well, I don't know if you'd call it normal. I guess you would call how I was eating, like when I stopped drinking, normal in this day and age, because people eat some pretty horrific stuff. I mean, I was eating some pretty sickening stuff. I would sit there and eat a whole cheesecake and, you know, a whole lasagna, because what I would do is I would stop one addiction and start up another addiction.
Well, this is a fairly common approach, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. With addicts, that's what you do. You repeat one addiction with the next addiction. So food became my next addiction. And I would eat, you know.
Well, it could have been coffee and cigarettes.
I was a smoker. I was still smoking at this stage. So, yes, I've been a very unhealthy girl. I didn't give up smoking for a few years down the track. So I was still smoking, eating a lot of junk food, would make dinners at home that I thought were healthy for my children. But that wasn't enough for me. When I'd finish up working in the evening, I'd call into McDonald's and pig out on McDonald's as well. So I was having like normal dinner and then McDonald's at like 10, 11 o'clock at night. So that was, yeah, my diet was dreadful, absolutely dreadful. 2010, so 7 years ago, that was sort of a real pivotal moment for me. I went to Las Vegas. And that was when I realised that I had an eating problem because I ate a lot there. Vegas has a lot of food.
Yeah, Vegas is like the home of food.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty crazy food in Vegas.
Absolutely. And
you can't make a dent. You can't make a dent in what's available.
No. Oh, it's just gluttony plus. And then they just keep refilling you and oh, it was just, yeah, and I was heavily overweight. And
so do you know how much, do you know what your peak weight had gotten to at that point?
Yeah, I was 86 kilos. I'm not 100% sure what that was in pounds. Sorry, I work in the...
That's not huge by any stretch. I mean, no, it's only like 185 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, compared to some weights, definitely. But for me, I had never really had a weight problem. I started to put my weight on through boozing and binge eating when I wasn't drinking, because I never ate when I drank. And then I put on even more weight through binge eating. And then I started to make changes to my diet, but I was nowhere near where I am now. That's for sure. It was just the start, baby steps. So it was just the start of the journey.
Do you remember who influenced you to even make any of those first steps in diet, or do you think it came from yourself somehow?
Look, I had tried dieting even when I was drinking, but not in a good way. I used to buy like those speed tablets from the from my doctor. I would try doing I would actually try doing raw diets, but I had no idea. But I knew in my head fruit and veggies were healthy. But I'd make a little bowl of fruit for breakfast and then a little salad for lunch. And by dinner, of course, I was absolutely starving. So it didn't work wonders. And then, of course, 2 days' time, I'm off the rails drinking. So, that sort of got that all out of control. So, yeah, I was messed up big time. I mean, I'm laughing now thinking about it, because it's just like, wow, how can someone be so messed up with their health? But so I've always, those yo-yo dieting, try all these things and whatever. I did then move into a large weight loss company and did their sort of calorie deficit diet, which I was successful at. Anyone can lose weight in a calorie deficit diet if you stick to it, of course. And I lost 26 kilos with that, and then I started working for the company. I worked for the company for 3 years, so I was a huge promoter. This program, in my opinion, it was the ants' pants that saved my life. And then I started to realise, because I was coaching so many people, I mean, sometimes I would see up to 1,000 different people a week, because I'd host big meetings and whatever, and I'd realise that there was just this roundabout that people weren't getting off. And for me, because I've got this mindset that if I'm going to do something, I do something. At first I couldn't understand it. I think, I can do it, anyone can do it, and I started to realise no, and then I found out that only 5% of people ever lose weight on these programs, and out of that 5%, only 10% ever keep it off. And I started to search further, and I said, you know what, I've got to find something. I've got to find the key to the kingdom, so to speak. And things were starting to fall off the rails for me, because my body was starving. I was starving for nutrition. I was hungry. I was so hungry, and I started binge eating. So then I would binge eat, and then I would over-exercise to compensate, and then I would push my calories back even further, so that I would keep my weight off, because ultimately, that's what women do. Well, that's what I did anyway. And I then came across the documentary Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead, and I did a 30-day juice fast, and I felt amazing. I was like, wow, my God, I can actually survive on juice. It was pretty amazing stuff, and I felt great, and my skin was just glowing, and it was just, wow, this is so amazing. And I wanted to tell everyone, I'm like, you've just got to do this. And everyone's going, yeah, she's living on juice. What's wrong with her? And then I started to, search more and more, and I thought there's something to plants. There's something to it. And I guess I started to realise that I didn't need all this protein, and I didn't need all these other foods. And so I moved into plant-based diet. But then I sort of went a little bit off the rails and started having higher fat. So that sort of started causing problems for me, and I started breaking out in, bad skin, because I was still eating a lot of grains, and everything started to flare up. And then this is the crunch point. This is the greatest part. I started using Instagram, and I started trying to work out the hashtags, and I kept seeing this 80-10-10 hashtag, thinking, what's this 80-10-10? oh, everyone's doing it, I'll just do the hashtag. I had no idea what I'm doing, and I'm hashtagging 80-10-10.
How funny.
And then I started to delve in and look at the hashtag. I'm thinking, oh, it's all only just raw fruits and veg. Oh, and I started delving, and then I found your book, and this is how the magic started.
Instagram. Well, I mean, at least it's well named.
Yeah.
I actually thought about naming my daughter Insta at one point. You know.
Yeah, why not?
Instagram. I mean, she would have been perfect. So then you tried 80-10-10. That's a success story. I'm not going to dwell on that with you really so much, because you dwell on that for people and you're doing a fine job of it. And we're not here really so much to convince people, I think. Certainly not by banging them over the head with that message. I'd like to find out more a little bit about what makes you tick, and for instance, like, what would you say today motivates you?
Myself.
Where are you coming up with your motivation now?
Myself, and this is something I actually preach to people. You have to be captain of your cheer squad. If you're not captain of your cheer squad, no one else is going to be. And I learned that years ago, because it's so easy to fall into ruts. And if I'm dependent on any particular person to be, to pull me up and, whatever, when they're not around, then I'm just going to fall into a heap. So I can honestly say that I am my greatest motivator. I do get motivated by other people, don't get me wrong, but I have to rely on me, because I'm my own best friend. Everything, and if I can't be my own best friend, I can't help other people and I can't help myself. So I would honestly say, not in an egotistical way, but I am my greatest motivator and my greatest inspiration, because I look at how far I've come and I say, you know what, you're pretty awesome. You've done a huge job.
A lot of people never got out of that hole that you were in.
Yeah, and I am my own motivator. I motivate myself a lot. I do a lot of self-love techniques and work with myself a lot, because I have to keep going. And the more, the more I'm out there on social media and the more I've become a role model for people, I know how important it is to keep myself motivated. I take it very seriously, that people are looking to me for guidance and looking to me, as a bit of a role model, so to speak. And I do take it seriously. So
you feel a responsibility?
Absolutely, I do. I feel responsible all the time, because I think when you put yourself out there in the public eye and you say, hey, this is what I'm doing, you have a responsibility to the safety of other people that are following you. People start following you because they want to grow, they want to learn, they may be motivated by you, they might be slightly inspired by you, or whatever it is. And I feel I've got a responsibility to be responsible and share the right information. I'm very cautious of that. I'm very cautious of what I put out there, and I'm very cautious of what I allow myself to be, be shared in my social media, so to speak, because I do care for other people, and that's probably why I put so much time into me, because if I can put time into me and love me enough, then I've got so much more time and energy to give to others. If that really makes sense,
it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
But it also opens up another line of questioning, which is you're putting yourself on the firing line. You're putting yourself out there, if you will. You're putting yourself in a leadership role. you're taking responsibility, which often means that you're not making everybody happy. You're willing to say things that not everybody's ready to hear, and you will take some flack.
Yeah.
Because you're taking a stand. And
Yeah.
most people, I'm going to say it up front, most people aren't ready to take a stand. And when somebody does, it upsets people. They want to see if you're a paper tiger or if you really stand for something.
Yeah.
So at that point, I have to ask, why? Why do you want to be a leader?
Well, I mean, I've always been a leader, I believe, most of my life, even when I was a teenager on a rat bag and people would ring my mum and say, your daughter's a rat bag and she's leading my daughter astray. And my mum would say, well, at least she's the leader. But I think on a serious note, I've been given a second chance at life and I took it. We all get second chances given to us, and third and fourth, but not all of us take them. Not all of us realise that that's a window that we've been given, an opportunity to move into something better, something greater, to leave, the past behind. And I want to give back. I'm strong enough to give back now. I mean, I wouldn't have been strong enough 10 years ago. I wasn't strong enough to give back to anybody, but I'm a strong person. I call myself an overcomer. For me, I get such joy out of watching people grow. I love watching people change their life. You get them, you wake up in the morning and I have messages from people, you're changing my life. It may not be to the extreme, people call it the extreme. They may not be where I am and I'm not maybe where other people are, but through watching me, they say, you know what, you've made a difference in my life. I'm thinking I've changed this or changed that. That gives me great pleasure. That gives me joy to know that people are bettering their life because I'm prepared to put myself out there and tell my life, the good, the bad and the ugly, and some of it's been pretty ugly, and I put it out there, not because to say, you know what, my life's been so crap, blah, 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 but I like to show people that all things are possible, because if someone like me can change my life, anyone can.
I wrote something very similar just today, just responding. Somebody had asked me a question. I go, look, I just want to show people that it's possible, and to have hope. But you said you called yourself an overcomer, and you have overcome a lot. Obviously, some of it you just kind of fell into, and some of it you created for yourself. But you got yourself out of it, and you do deserve pats on the back and a lot of recognition for that. What would you say in the past? What would you say was your biggest accomplishment? My
2 children. Some people might say, wow, you had them so young, but they're still my greatest accomplishment. I love them. I'm proud of them. If it wasn't for them, I'd probably be dead. So, they bring me.
Instead, they just gave me 4 hairs.
Oh yeah, no, I could have been dead, and I know that. I know how bad my life was. But they're my greatest accomplishment. They're my greatest joy. They're just beautiful kids, and I love them. And I'm so grateful through everything they went through in their childhood that they still love me, and they're proud of me. So, yeah, my kids. I did something right. Yeah, I love them to death.
And if you were to look forward as far as you can see into the future, what do you see as your biggest challenge, or your biggest, not even your biggest challenge, but your biggest what's going to be your biggest accomplishment in the future?
Oh, I don't know, the sky's the limit. And I do believe that. The sky's the limit. I mean, my greatest accomplishment to date would be just packing up everything I own and getting rid of it and saying, stuff it. I'm just going to live as a nomad for as long as I can. So that would be my greatest accomplishment at this point in time. What will be the greatest thing? I think the greatest thing for me would be probably to continue to share my story with people, to get it out to as many people as possible, you know, to lead as many people as I can to live the healthiest lives they can be, you know. And we've all got different levels of what we find will be the healthiest life. I never have these expectations. If you're not here, you're not there, so to speak. You know, we've all got our, you know, journeys to get to. But just to lead people to become healthier, better, vibrant people and live fulfilling lives, live lives with purpose. I watch people, you know, when you're in capital cities, and especially if you're in a hotel and you can look down, and I watch people and they're ants, and most people are miserable. You know, they truly are. If you watch people in big cities, they're miserable and they're walking to work and that sort of. And I just think, you know, if I can enlighten people to live lives with purpose, it's not all about, you know, working and, you know, having the best of everything and keeping up with the Joneses or anything else. It's about just living life, being the best version of you, being happy, being at peace with yourself. And if I can get that message out, I've accomplished what my dream is. That's my dream, to get that message out.
Fantastic. So a little bit of nitty gritty, down and dirty. As you've gone through the last 3 to 4 years and really getting your alignment with all the various aspects of living an 80-10-10 lifestyle, and then whatever you end up calling it, what would you say have been the biggest stumbling blocks for you to overcome?
Well, I think with 80-10-10, I failed at it a few times, and because it's not a lifestyle that you're used to at first. And I know the longest I went on it, the longest I was successful at this lifestyle prior to this time was 3 weeks, and I fell off the rails, and I wasn't eating enough, and I learned that after. I sort of was semi-following things, but I still had that mentality that I wanted to, you know, keep it low. I didn't want to eat as much, and I became, you know, quite fatigued, and I was tired, and I ended up with bad headaches, and I thought, oh God. So then I started really putting my time and energy into researching the program properly, and I read the book, and I started following people who were successful on this lifestyle, and I started, you know, watching, you know, what do I eat videos and all those kind of things to help me overcome. I think that was one of the biggest hurdles, but I think another hurdle for me was my lack of patience. I'm not known for my patience, so you know, and we live in a Pop-Tart society, and you sort of, because I'd come from calorie control, you know, you expect everything instantaneously, but all of a sudden you're putting larger volumes in, and things weren't working as quick as possible as I wanted. And, you know, later down the track, everything started to fall into place. I just had to be patient. I think that was one of my biggest hurdles, but it was also a great hurdle, and it was a great challenge because it taught me to be patient. It taught me that I need to be consistent. I need to be true to myself, and, you know, stick with the guidelines, stick with just the base. Stop trying to change it to suit. I mean, you've got to change things to suit yourself in your own lifestyles, but, you know, stop trying to put too many twists and bows and everything else on it. That was, you know, different challenges for me to come overcome. But if I spoke to myself now, like then, I'd probably say just be patient, the magic will happen. I sort of thought, you know, it's day 2, everything should be here. I should look like, you know, Freely the Banana Girl or something by now. You know, my skin's not where I wanted it to be yet. And I've noticed more and more as people come into my group, it's a pretty big group, that I see the same things. Oh, I've been on it 5 days. I haven't, you know, I'm not here yet. Just be patient. I think that's the greatest thing for people to overcome. Be patient, be consistent, and the magic will happen.
Well, I mean, that's brilliant insight. It's really brilliant insight. It takes a lifetime to live a lifetime. And people have heard the idea that, you know, we rebuild our bodies every 7 years, and they want a new body after 7 minutes.
Yeah. It's a nice idea.
I'll tell you now, 7 years is not a long time to get a handle on this lifestyle. It is not a long time. If you were going to share with people today what you still find challenging and say, okay, well, what is it about your current healthy lifestyle that you find most challenging to integrate? Now, I've shared this with people. I say, for me, the hardest thing is getting enough sleep. Life is just so interesting, and there's so much to do, and there's so much I want to do, that getting to sleep is often for me the toughest part. And then it's tomorrow, and I didn't get enough sleep, and then I can't do all those other. So for me, I mean, the food part for me is easy.
Yeah.
But it's been 40 years. It's been more than 40 years that I haven't gotten the sleep part together yet. I mean, for me, fitness is so easy because I just love doing fitness activities, and any kind of play for me is fun. And so what are you finding today? Like you go, oh, you know, I really need to do better at.
Well, I'm traveling. So, I mean, I am in a tropical climate at the moment, and there is sensational fruit here. So it's not the issue of fruit. I think my greatest struggle when I first started traveling was to organise myself a lot better, because I was so organised when I was back home and I was working. I would have all my food organised in the morning. I would have it all packed, and I was in such a routine. For me, when I first started travelling, it threw everything out of whack. And I went from having all the U-Butte kitchen tools, you know, my power blenders and, you know, dehydrators and processors and you name it. I had absolutely everything. And all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I'm having everything how we should. And it's been a great learning curve, and it's been a great growing curve for me, because I've really grown in this lifestyle even further now, because I was getting into, you know, having all the fancy sauces and everything. Well, I can't do all that now. So I'm really... Simple
works just as well. And I love eating simply, but I love eating gourmet as well.
Yeah.
But I love eating. I'm joining you on that. I love eating. It's a treat. My daughter's not into eating so much. I mean, she wants to read and play piano or do anything, you know, and then she'll just come and have a few bites and then she's gone again. And I want to sit down and enjoy a meal.
Yeah, I hear you. I love food. It's my, you know, from the moment I wake up to the time I go to sleep, I'm thinking about food. It's amazing. But yeah, I guess that's probably been my biggest challenge. I think sometimes you have challenges with, you know, when you go out on social functions, you know, family can make little snide comments and, you know, you're so painful or whatever, those kind of, you know, basic challenges, those kind of things. For me, I know they're not easy for a lot of people. For me personally, they're sort of water off a duck's back, because I've dealt with those kind of things with drinking, with giving up smoking, all those kind of things. So for me, they're not new challenges to come up against. you know, I've had challenges. I'd be a liar to say if I haven't had challenges. Definitely, there's been challenges.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you go.
Is your family still judging you on your past failures, or are they accepting that you're pretty serious about what you're doing now? Do they feel judged or intimidated or in any way like uneasy because you're choosing to be a vegan or a raw vegan at that?
Well, my daughter, myself and my partner, the three of us went vegan together. So that was pretty cool. That was, you know, you can't ask for better in a household than three of you going vegan together. I'm the only one who went raw. My family have watched me over the years with my health and whatever, and they just, whatever mum's doing, you know. Okay, mum, so to speak. I mean, my son, he's a ratbag. He will make different comments and whatever, but he goes on and off the, I will say, plant-based bandwagon. He's not in that vegan direction, but he'll go on and off the plant-based. He wanted to go out with a vegan girl, so all of a sudden he said, I'm vegan. I said, hang on, no, you're not. But, you know,
that's how I went vegetarian.
Yeah. But my mum at first, when I changed over, yeah, she was not happy. Why can't you just be normal? You know, you're just not normal. You always have to be extreme. You push things to the, you know, furthest degree and blah, 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 blah. Bit by bit, it's all growing on her. You know, she will eat vegan food when she's out. She'll even have like a big salad when she's out. She won't eat animal products in front of me now. So, you know, bit by bit, I think people learn to accept your lifestyle. I think everyone's going to react at first to change in lifestyle. And I think ultimately the reason people react is because people don't like change. And when they have to deal with you changing it, they have to look at a lot of things in their own lifestyle, and people don't like that. And I think another reason why people as well don't like changes is they like the you that they're used to hanging out with. So if they're used to hanging out with you and you eat together, well, that might be taken away from them. And I know when I gave up drinking, people were like, I don't really want to hang around Jade. She's boring. You know, she used to be the life of the party, and we were drinking buddies. So people don't like that change. And I guess I've had so many years of dealing with people and different changes that for me, it's a part of life. But I do know these challenges are major problems to people. I guess my major challenge has always become sort of about me and how things are affecting me, you know, not so much how they affect other people. Because like I say to people, what I eat shouldn't affect you. You know, how's it making any difference?
Well, good luck. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. I mean, people know, because deep in their hearts, they know that they're trying to get away with something that can't possibly work long term. They see that you've made change. They judge themselves even if you don't judge them. There's always that intimidation factor. Okay, let's do two more questions, quick ones, and then we'll give you a chance to respond to the multitude of questions that have come in. I'll let Kevin handle asking you those. But first of all, what would you say? What's the newest thing going on in your life, Jade? What's new?
The newest thing in my life going on would be I've been travelling since February. I'm currently in Thailand. I have been in Thailand since the end of February, early March. I've travelled right through Thailand. I've had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful time. And what's new from there is I want to travel throughout Southeast Asia. So I'll be going to Laos next. And after that, I'll be going down to Cambodia and then Vietnam and Philippines, which I'm really excited I'm the most excited for Philippines because I'm going to be going over there for the Durian Festival. So that's pretty exciting.
Cool. And And in terms of what's next,
Yeah.
beyond what's new, what's next? Do you have projects or plans, or are you just going to let the tour be what's next for a while and let that be its own excitement, or do you have something you want to tell us about?
Yeah, I've got plans. Always got plans. Always got plans. I'm just completing at the moment an ebook, which I hope to be releasing by the end of July. I'm just fine-tuning it. I've got to send it over to, the people that do all the fancy tech stuff that I've got no idea about. So yeah, I'll be releasing an ebook. I've just recently started another group. I've got my Raw Vegan Fruitarians for Life group where we heavily promote 80-10-10. I've just started a new group where I'll be helping people further with transitioning so they can ask different questions. I try to keep cooked food questions and everything else off my big page because it can lead to food triggers for people. So I've just started a new group where people can be free to ask a lot more questions and grow in this lifestyle a little bit further at their own pace, so to speak, just so I can give that little bit more time and energy and put more time and energy into helping people grow further into the raw lifestyle. And I'll be concentrating a lot more in that group also on self-love and positive body image, which are really important things to me because I believe if you can't love yourself, you're never going to grow in this lifestyle.
No, that's something you have to keep on building for a lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's as important as any other aspect of our healthcare.
Yeah, definitely.
That's super. Super. I'm so appreciative of the time you spent. If you're willing to spend a few more minutes with us, I think we can get Kevin back on the line. And Kevin, if you want to try to interpret some of the questions, I know you've been communicating back and forth through the chat, and we'll see if we can get him on. I don't know, he might have gone home.
Oh, why not?
We're having so much fun. If he can't figure it out, I'll ask him, but we'll give him one more. Hello, Kevin out there in TV world. Are you out there still? And if we don't get him to jump in, let me ask you a couple of the questions that I'm seeing pop up. And they start with a question on mushrooms. There's a lot of stories about mushrooms, and do you eat raw mushrooms? We'll start there.
Do I personally? I go through phases. I don't like raw mushrooms if they're not marinated for a start. I usually, if I have them, they're marinated in a lime or lemon juice. They're not a huge part of my diet. Let's put it that way. If they're there, I'll eat them. If I may occasionally put them into my raw chili or whatever. I'm still alive. I haven't died on them. I don't get over paranoid about these kind of different things. But they're not something that they're in my daily diet, that's for sure. I guess that's the answer. You could possibly answer this because we have a lot of debates about this in my group, whether you should or shouldn't eat raw mushrooms. You're the expert. What can you tell us?
Well, very much depends on the mushroom.
Right, okay.
Certainly some mushrooms you shouldn't eat under any circumstance.
Yeah.
But what I really attempt to do with this whole segment is not go into those kind of health questions so much.
Okay.
Unless there are things that you're willing to handle. It's a rare. I do Q&A on board here every month, twice a month.
Yeah.
I'm on this webinar, and I can handle any questions that we don't get to or aren't appropriate. I'll handle them in the Q&A.
Yeah.
We have a full schedule of Q&As coming up 24 times a year. So
wow.
We do answer plenty of questions. But I want my experts to be able to shine tonight and every time we have somebody on board. And so the next one is a question about people who have trouble essentially going raw vegan I mean, in many ways, it's easiest for a child to go raw vegan.
Of course.
And the more time we have behind us with those other habits, sometimes the harder it is to break. But I don't really think it matters the age myself. The most motivated person I've ever worked with to go raw vegan was a 90-year-old man.
Wow, that's
and
awesome.
He called me up out of the blue one day and said, "I want to go raw."
Oh, go him. That's awesome.
And I said, like, do you want to do it like gradually, or do you want to just like do it overnight? And he goes, "I'm 90."
There's no gradual. There's no time.
I wish everybody could have that sense of urgency, but what would you say is your best advice for people who are trying to go raw and they're having trouble staying raw?
Don't put pressure on yourself. I think when we put too much pressure on ourselves, we set ourselves up for failing. And I think we're all different. Don't compare yourself to someone else, because it's really easy to do in this day and age, especially with social media. You see people, you know, constantly putting themselves out there and say, oh, they know how to do it, they're perfect. But you don't know what they've gone through to actually get there. For me, I just believe if you're struggling, just start, you know, with even breakfast. If you can just have a raw breakfast, you've achieved something. And I think it's a wonderful thing just to grow as you're ready. You know, if you are one of those people that can go like that, awesome. But if you're not one of those people, just start with breakfast, and then if you can move into lunch, well, that's another meal that you're raw for. Even if you start a calendar and you then after that, you know, tick the days off that you're actually raw. If you can be raw 3 days out of 7, you're doing fantastic. And don't be hard on yourself. It's so easy to beat yourself up and say, oh, I failed again. You don't have to think like that. If you muff up, so to speak, you know, and all of a sudden have a cooked meal, don't punish yourself and say, oh, I'm a failure. Say, you know what, I had a cooked meal. It's okay. Tomorrow I'll have raw and go back. You know, each meal is a new opportunity to put more raw food into your lifestyle. And I know
on every bite, don't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think if we bring our past continually with us, then we keep going back to it rather than saying, you know what, it's okay. I had a cooked meal. Tomorrow I'll eat watermelon for breakfast and everything will be great again, you know. Okay.
So that leads us to now you're eating more produce than probably ever in your life.
Absolutely.
And what's your take on the organic thing? And people are asking, you know, do you get concerned about the chemicals?
Absolutely, but ultimately I think we've got to all do the best we can. I know in Australia there was no way I could afford to eat all organic. Organic produce is astronomical. In Australia you can pay up to 6-7 times the amount because we just don't have the demand for it. In a perfect world, yes, we would all eat organic. I truly believe you are still better. I think I read it I think you wrote it. You said you're still better off eating raw food over cooked food, regardless. I think I read it from you. I'm not 100%. I did. Oh, good. Yeah. I try as much as possible to eat organic, but you know, what I can't afford, I can't afford it. It is what it is, and I'm not going to put that pressure on myself.
Have you bumped into any, I'm going to call it either hate mail or people making up stories, either individuals or actually from various industries? You know, the people ask me all the time, you know, what does the meat industry think about my work? And I'm not on their radar. I'm not coming out against the meat industry. I'm coming out in favor of fruits and vegetables. How do you couch your message so as not to get on people's bad side?
I have got on people's bad side. Don't worry. I know there's there's a forum that completely love talking about my group, and they love talking. Apparently, I haven't been enlightened enough. I'm not sure, but
listen, when people aren't talking about you, you're not doing anything worth talking about.
Yeah, that's right. Look, yeah, I have. Look, I've copped abuse from people for sure. You can't. I mean, I've got 32,000 people on my forum. It's a lot of people, and I've had a lot of abuse. I've had a lot of nasty messages sent to me. I've had some vulgar, disgusting things sent to me. I've had hurtful things sent to me. Yeah, definitely. But I can't let that get to me. I have spoken to people with larger social media, discussed with them different techniques that they do and whatever. I have to admit, when it first happened, I thought, wow, what's going on? People hate me, and I don't even think I'm a bad person. But, you know, I've learned to deal with it. I now just try and focus on the people that bring light into my life and appreciate what I'm doing, rather than focus on I call them negative Nancy's and Nigels. If I focus on them, I'm not going to be able to keep pushing out the information and doing the work that I'm doing. So it's really important not to. But yeah, people are nasty. People can be really cruel.
So do you have any, I know this isn't, it's not your field, like health advice per se, without becoming medical training and that whole thing. And we're not looking to bypass all of that training and protocol and actually doing things according to what's ethically and morally correct. But what's been your experience with diabetes, diabetics, any guidance on that line at all? The question comes up so often.
My partner was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes 16 years ago. We were actually in Thailand when he started having his blood sugar level was just off the roof, and he went to walk in front of a truck, and I grabbed him back. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? You know, thinking he was a crazy person. And when we got back home, he had all his bloods taken, and his blood was through the roof, and they said, you have type 2 diabetes. And that's been a big battle. He was on insulin twice a day, 28 milligrams. We went through the whole Diabetes Association and the diets they put him on. Oh my God. They put them on diets just to still be diabetic, but nothing changes. And
it's a maintenance program. You maintain your diabetes.
Absolutely. And I went to so many seminars to learn so many different things. And, you know, the things they advocate, you know, the diet drinks and the diet biscuits and just total garbage. And he's been following a high carb, low fat diet, not raw, but he does have a lot of raw in his diet. He's off the insulin, he's off the tablets. He's lost 20 kilos. He's still probably got, I reckon, about 15 to 18 kilos to go. It has been a very slow. People with diabetes just don't seem to lose the weight as quickly, but he's been doing really well. We walk 10 to 25 kilometres a day. So we walk heavily, and I think that and diet has been the key components to him coming off his diabetes medicine. And we don't put any added fat into his diet. So the only fat that he has in his diet is purely what he gets from the fruit and vegetables.
And for Gemma, who also asked that question about type 1s, my experience with Gemma has been roughly, when we compare the amount of grams of carbohydrate to units of insulin, which is a nice formula to use. If we just look at grams of carbohydrate to units of insulin, which tells us a fair amount about your insulin sensitivity. What I'm seeing is a 75% reduction in insulin use for type 1 diabetics who are truly type 1 diabetics. Now, a lot of people are classed as type 1, but really they're a mix of either type 1 and type 2, or type 2 that is turning into type 1 due to dysfunction. And a lot of those people can get completely free of insulin. But a true type 1 is going to be insulin dependent, but they're able to reduce usage dramatically. About 75% is what I see as average. And the way to control the spikes is A, create need for sugar before you consume it, and B, keep fat intake levels, dietary fat intake levels, just as low as humanly possible. Those two factors just work the charm. I did see one last question came in, if you'll do it, and that would be your advice to somebody who wants to be a vegan advocate. Would you say write a book, social media, get your own television show? People always tell me just all you need to do is go to the talk show circuit. And I go, well, yeah, but getting invited is harder than you might think it is. How would you advise somebody who wants to be a good vegan advocate today? What's a good way to go?
I think there's no right or wrong. I always say this, there's no right or wrong way, and I think we all have different methods. I think you have to look at what you're good at and use that skill to help, bring people in. I did a speech at the Adelaide Vegan Festival, and I said in my speech, I said, we can all do something. It doesn't matter how little it is, even if it's just putting a post on Instagram daily, just showcasing your food so that people say, I could actually eat that. That's okay. I think the most important thing is do what you're comfortable doing. And as you get bigger and better and more confidence, you grow and you work out what you can do. I mean, I'm a pretty loud and proud vegan. I am openly a vegan activist. I've been in protests, so, I push myself out there. But I have changed as well my approach. When I first became vegan, I was a pretty angry vegan. All of a sudden you think, I've been lied to for all these years. The whole world's got to know and everyone's got to follow me, so to speak, and be vegan. But I've changed my approach. I'm not like that now. I realise it's just love, understanding, compassion, guidance, and showcasing your own life. And for me, I just focus on being the best version of myself and being the change I want to be in this world. And if I can showcase that to people and people see that I'm living a happy life, who wants to follow an angry vegan? I think it's really important to be nice and put yourself out there as a nice, happy person. People say, you know what, I want to follow her. She's got a good approach. And, that for me, I find is working a lot more than when I was an angry vegan. I'm finding I'm getting a lot more positive responses, that's for sure.
Well done you. Well done you. You definitely catch more flies with honey, don't you?
Absolutely. Vegan honey.
Vegan honey at that.
Yeah.
Vegan, not vegan honey.
Yeah.
Well, Jade, it has been a total pleasure, just a total pleasure. I hope you didn't feel like you were working too much, and that it doesn't take you too long to come down from this presentation until you can get to sleep. It's wee hours up where you are, but
3:15 in the morning.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you so much for being on the show. People will be watching you again and again and again. We'll air this so people can, not only people who are here, but others can watch it. And I look forward to joining forces with you on this, that, and the next thing as things become available. You are a wonder, and you are a wonderful person. I'm very, very proud of you and very happy to have had you on board, and just thrilled to get to know you a bit better than I did. And just keep doing all those great things you're doing with those big groups of people, and letting people know that as you said, if you could do it, anybody could do it. I mean, you came from a deep down dark place, And life is good. Life is really good. Life is sweet. Life is wonderful. And it's going to get even better.
Amen. Life is great. No, thank you so much for having me on here. This has just been an absolute thrill for me, and to meet you, cyber-wise anyway, to meet you has just been an absolute, it is, it's an absolute start. It's just been an absolute joy for me, and another thing ticked off on my bucket list. So it's all happening. Set goals, they happen.
Yes, you are. Folks, we look forward to seeing you soon. We're going to be having, of course, our twice monthly Q&A sessions. We'll continue with our interview series. We've got several informative talks coming up as well over the course of the summer, so I look forward to being with you repeatedly all summer long, both Wednesday nights, and we're going to be adding a few Saturday nights in as well. So looking forward to seeing you again and again. Thanks again, Jade. It has been a treat, an eye-opening treat, and thank you for being such a force for good in the world. Folks, I just want to remind everybody to go to health, and there's not much more I could possibly say than that.